today we will talk about sample joint venture agreement between landowner and developer और इसके साथ ही हम दोनों पार्टीज जो एक सैम्पल जॉइंट वेंचर अग्रीमेंट में होती है उनके अपने पर्सपेक्टिव से भी कुछ राइट्स एंड प्रिकॉशंस के बारे में बात करेंगे। तो सबसे पहले एज एन इंट्रोडक्शन आई वुड लाइक टू briefly explain as to what a sample joint venture agreement actually is. So, a joint venture or a JV is an agreement between two or more affiliations to share the risks and rewards of an investment. As a matter of fact, short time initiatives के लिए भी एक sample joint venture one time agreement बन सकता है, and on the other hand long term initiatives के लिए एक sample joint venture agreement between landowner and developer में डेवलपर असिस्ट करता है ताकि लैंड ओनर जो भी प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा है वो उसे कम्युनिटी में अच्छे से इस्टेब्लिश कर सके अंडर देयर कंट्रोल। नाउ इट्स नॉट जस्ट अ वन टाइम बाय एंड सेल अग्रीमेंट। With this, I would now like to explain about the three types of usually involved parties for a sample joint venture agreement between landowner and developer in property development areas. First is involvement of a landowner and a developer. Now, in this, one party donates the land while the other handles the development. जब डेवलप्ड लॉट्स बिक जाते हैं तभी टिपिकली डेवलपर उस सेल की डेवलपमेंट कॉस्ट पे करता है एंड द पार्टीज फर्दर स्प्लिट द प्रोसीड्स. Second is involvement of two developers. In this, the two parties, that is the developers, jointly purchase the property and carry out the development, usually sharing costs and responsibilities. और इसके बाद जब डेवलप्ड लॉट्स बिक जाते हैं तब दोनों पार्टीज जितनी भी प्रोसीड्स कलेक्ट करती हैं उसे स्प्लिट करेंगे इन अकॉर्डेंस टू द डेवलपमेंट कॉस्ट दे पेड अलोंग द वे. And third is the involvement of an investor and a developer. Now इसके अंदर जो इन्वेस्टर होता है सिर्फ वो लैंड और डेवलपमेंट कॉस्ट को फाइनेंशियली स्पॉन्सर करता है एज द नेम सजेस्ट और उसी टाइम डेवलपर सारा काम करवाता है. Now the developer can be paid a fixed amount, a percentage of the sale proceeds, or a combination of the two with a development management fee paid while the project is being completed and afterwards a piece of the sale proceeds shared. तो ये तीन टाइप्स की पार्टीज इन्वॉल्व होती हैं और वो अपने सिचुएशन के हिसाब से अपना सैम्पल जॉइंट वेंचर अग्रीमेंट बनाते हैं. नाउ we will move on to some considerations that the landowners should have while making a sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer. In this subtopic we will only talk from the side of the landowner. तो कुछ ऐसे पॉइंट्स जिनका लैंड ओनर को ध्यान में रखना चाहिए वो है एग्जामिन द डेवलपर्स क्रेडेंशियल्स, जैसे उसके ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड्स एंड वो कितना केपेबल है गोल्स को पूरा करने में. Now it is also important to register your firm and transfer the land to the new entity's book before engaging into a joint venture agreement with a builder. This way you can own 100% of this new entity's shares or various promoters can own shares based on their claim to the land. Also under the Indian Company Law Act, the new firm should ideally be incorporated as a private limited company. अब आप एक सैम्पल जॉइंट वेंचर अग्रीमेंट फॉर्म बना सकते हैं विद अ कंस्ट्रक्शन बिजनेस एंड एज अ रिजल्ट द अग्रीमेंट इज बिटवीन टू बिजनेसेस. One provides land for the project's development while the other provides finance and experience for the project's development. इसके साथ ही recent trends in India however suggest a 1/3 to 2/3 guideline. In this, the landowner receives 1/3 of the project outflows, whereas the real estate developer receives 2/3 of the project outflows. Next is, as a landowner, you have to make sure that the number of dwelling units or the project's developed area is given to you and is explicitly stated in the sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer. For instance, अगर आपका कोई housing project है तो the sample joint venture agreement should include the housing unit number, size and floor. And lastly, don't forget to engage the services of a skilled legal firm or a power of attorney that specializes in real estate joint ventures and due diligence. In fact, ये सारे पॉइंट्स एक एनआरआई लैंड ओनर के पर्सपेक्टिव से भी मैच करते हैं, especially because you don't know the property related conundrums in India and what their legislations are. So, if you are an NRI and want to be a part of a sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer, please adhere to the information in this video. Moving on, we will now look as to how can a sample joint venture agreement between landowner and developer be drafted. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, that we will look at both the landowners and the developer's perspective. Therefore, the first point that we will be sharing is the obligations that the first party should consider, which is usually a developer. So, basically, this section, which is frequently divided into several clauses, outlines the first party's obligations. The first section of a landowner developer joint venture agreement will give details like the developer's responsibilities. Some clauses that could be included are surrounded with how the work can be carried out or what exactly does the programmer do, or will plans be annexed so that the development's appearance is clear. Even the prospect of is it necessary for the developer to obtain a development approval, and if so, what happens if it is not granted. So terms like these can be included under the first party, that is supposedly the developer's obligation. Next, we will switch to the second party's obligation, which is usually the landowner. So the second party's obligations are outlined in this section, which is frequently divided into several clauses. The second portion of a sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer will give details about the landowner's responsibilities. Some clauses that could be included are if there is an existing mortgage, or whether the landowner must submit the land as collateral for development funds or not, or who will be the loan's sponsor, or who will be accountable for loan repayment. Also, situations like what if the development agreement isn't completed before the loan is paid out. So, the outline of the draft now contains the obligations of both the involved parties. The next clause in the sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer is profit sharing or development fee. In this, a few prevalent approaches can be mentioned in order to deal with the development fee or profit sharing. Those can be हर पार्टी के पास कुछ प्रॉफिट अमाउंट होगा जो भी डेवलपमेंट से ऑब्टेन हुआ है. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट कैन बी कि जो डेवलप्ड लॉट्स हैं उनका पार्टीज के हिसाब से डिवीजन, ताकि अपने अपने लॉट्स का जैसा जैसा प्रोग्रेशन करना है वो अपने हिसाब से कर सकते हैं. Next point can be about the landowner receiving a fixed payment in exchange for donating the property, and the developer obtains all profits over the land value. Similarly, other points can revolve around the developer and landowner's pay. जैसे डेवलपर को एक स्पेसिफिक फ़ी मिल सकते हैं अपनी डेवलपमेंट सर्विसेज के लिए, और उसके साथ कुछ परफॉर्मेंस इंसेंटिव अगर देना चाहे तो, बट ओनली इफ जो टारगेट गोल था वो रीच हुआ है कि नहीं, और वो लैंड ओनर को बाकी फंड्स ले सकते हैं एज देयर पे. Apart from all this, each sample venture agreement is tailored in accordance to your specific circumstances, and there is no one size fits all approach to dealing with them. अब हम अपने सैम्पल जॉइंट वेंचर अग्रीमेंट के अगले क्लॉज की तरफ बढ़ते हैं, जो है फंडिंग फॉर कंस्ट्रक्शन. Now it's typical for development land to be mortgaged to cover some of the costs, and the development agreement should spell out whether this is allowed, and if so, how it would function. So, here are a few things, or rather questions to think about, that can be answered in the agreement according to the mutual decision of both the parties. So, these can be, will personal assurances be provided by the developer and the landowner? Is the landowner required to pay off any existing mortgages, or will they be refinanced using construction funds? Is there a ceiling on the loan to value ratio? अब हमारा अगला clause is about the appointment of consultants. So basically, all development agreements should spell out who is in charge of selecting and hiring consultants. Is it up to the developer to make the decision, or do both sides have to agree? What if the parties are unable to reach an agreement, or what if the price is higher than anticipated in the budget, or if it is possible for the developer to appoint a connected firm? This section is very significant for large consultants like builders, civil engineers, and real estate agents, and it is where the most disagreements occur. So make sure to draft it with careful considerations. You have to take help from a reliable power of attorney if you are an NRI who will inform you about the right people and the right amount. हमारे अगला clause is rights to naming and signage. This is especially essential in cases where two developers or a developer and an equity partner are forming a sample joint venture agreement and both want to be able to claim the development as their own. In this scenario, the sample joint venture agreement should specify who owns the intellectual property linked with the development's branding, and who has the right to construct advertising signs around the property. Another factor to consider is who gets to name the development, including street names for large land subdivisions. अब हमारे agreement का आखिरी clause है project control group. Now, a project control group, or PCG, is a committee made up of members from both parties that makes development choices. And it is customary for the developer to have entire control over day-to-day development choices in a developer landowner joint venture. So the landowner may then be entitled to vote on key profit sharing decisions such as employing consultants who are over budget. So these were the basic attributes of a sample joint venture agreement between a landowner and a developer. Thank you.